Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke. I am so glad you're back again. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to the show. You've been one of my listeners for a long, long time. Welcome back. This is a new platform for me, and it's quite interesting. I'm bringing you the best minds in the industry because today there is so much misinformation out there. And what we're trying to do is give clarity, transparency, and make sure that everybody that is trying to learn something has the best tools to be able to get that job done. So today you're going to really love this. I have one of my favorite guests on with me today. We had done radio shows a long time ago and we've reconnected, and I got to tell you, I have been so excited about this show all week. So got to do a background bio. For more than 30 years, Brenda Watson has been helping people achieve vibrant health through improved digestion. As the author of 8 books, a New York Times bestseller, and the creator of 6 PBS shows on digestive health, including her newest show, Gut Check, Hope for Ultimate Health. Brenda continues the crusade of teaching how the gut is the foundation of your health. Brenda's focus has always been on digestive health, and she believes your intestinal well-being is the root of good health overall. A critical element of digestive health is the health and balance of your microbiome, an area of specialty for Brenda and her company, Vital Planet. Armed with the latest research, Brenda is now helping to unravel the newest mysteries of the gut microbiome, including the benefits of post and parabiotics and the importance of gut integrity. Help me welcome my guest. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
I'm so happy to have you back again. Of
I
course,
know it seems like forever.
Exciting. It has been forever, but this is exciting. You know, we've, of course, I followed your career. I have all of your books. I've read them all many times because it's interesting that we have to stay on top of this as much as we do. And, you know, you and I were briefly chatting before about how some of these facts, some of these figures, some of these procedures and things that we should all be kind of looking at, you've been teaching for the longest time.
Right.
And it's more important today than ever before.
Right, it is. And, you know, because my own issue started many, many years ago, I didn't start working on my health until the 1980s. But I guess the way it transitioned for me is I realized when I started doing more natural things, it was my gut. Of course, there was no science behind it then. I just found out that when I cleansed my body, when I did the things back in the 80s, I got better. So then, of course, my career changed and I went into nutrition, and that focus was always gut health, because when I first got out of school, I started putting together natural health clinics. And the natural health clinics here in Florida, and they were mostly detoxification clinics and gut clinics, because we did colonics, we did steam baths, we did, clay rats, we did all the elements of detoxification and cleansing, but without a lot of the science in it that we have today. But that taught me, by working with people over many, many years, the benefits of gut health before it was popular. I was weird back then. I mean, people were like, "Oh, you do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I do that." Until, about the early 2000s, when I was out lecturing in the natural products industry, and I wrote my first book. And always, no matter what, and no matter the naysayers or whomever in gut health, I knew that what I was doing was the right track. And I knew that when I had people in the clinic, when I had people that out in the field that I counseled and things like that, I knew that if they had skin issues or migraine headaches or whatever they were going through with their health issues, I knew it was in their gut. And as I worked with people over the years and they got better and better, just like I did, they got better and better and better. And all the clients and things we had in our clinics over the years, and working with medical doctors who were transitioning into what you call functional medicine, integrative medicine today. So my background in it was very strong, that I had that, that strength of knowing as I moved forward over the years and wrote more books and evolved with the science, because science, did evolve starting in the early 2000s.
Well, you would think today, as a nation, let's just talk about our country here, we have so much more knowledge at our fingertips
Hmm.
today. And, it was hard to find information when I was first starting 45 years ago. I had to dead search for enough information to do a radio show, and most of it was research books where you couldn't even check them out of the library. So
Right.
I spent a lot of time there. But, we have all this knowledge at our fingertips today, yet we are in perilous decline in our health, and gut
Absolutely.
health has gotten worse. And it's not just elderly people like it was at one state of the game, more elderly people with gut issues. I'm talking to people in their teens and their 20s and their 30s. Their guts are a disaster. We know
Right.
better, but we're not doing it.
We're not. And I'll tell you one of the things I think, I'll just give you an example of this. When I used to, when I came out, let's talk, cleansing, let's say cleansing,
Okay.
whether you're cleansing from, whole body cleansing or candida or SIBO or any of the gut conditions today. People today, what I see is, they want to do something for 2 or 3 days,
Yeah.
and it's the quick fix. What I used to teach and what is still relevant today, I'm having to go back and adjust it somewhat, is it takes time. When you have autoimmune, when you're into leaky gut, my first lecture on leaky gut was in 1994, right? So a long history of this. But what people today, I put out with, when I did products and things like that and cleansing kits, I taught processes, I taught systems. Okay, if you're going to cleanse your body, you need to, and you're cleansing it specifically, let's say you're cleansing it from toxins, you need a fiber, you need a probiotic, and you need to go through each of these stages and steps of cleansing to get a result. And today we're having to adjust everything to this quick, like you get on Instagram or you're on TikTok. Oh, get this thing, and that's going to help you, and you're going to overcome autoimmune or this one thing, and you're going to have this. That's just not the way it works.
Yep.
And you're right, because now science is saying to us, oh yeah, there is leaky gut. That was not even acknowledged. I had a GI doctor tell me one time, because I worked with GI doctors because we did colonics and they did colonoscopies in the Tampa Bay area. And I had him tell me one time, don't ever say that word in front of me again, because that does not occur in the human body. And I was like, okay, I won't. He knows more than me. He's a doctor, right? But anyway, the point of it is today we're in worse shape because you can't put chemicals, you can't put the processed foods in our body, you can't take acid blocking medication, you can't do all these things that we've continued to do year after year. And the degradation of the body, the health of the body, is getting worse and worse. So it's about a program, in helping people. It is about probiotics. It is about fiber, but it's got to be set up consistently. You know what I mean? Changes have to be made consistently for people to get better from some of the things that we're dealing with today. I wrote a book one time called Detox Strategy. And in that book, you could go into the environmental working group and look at the amount of chemicals that were in the environment, that they did blood test and urine test and found, the average person had something like 80 chemicals floating around in their blood and coming out through their urine. And today we have probably more.
Oh, sure.
So the whole thing around cleansing, rebalancing the gut with, the probiotics, with L-glutamine, which is one of the ways that we heal leaky gut, and not just somebody thought up a formula thought up a formula with glutamine in it, and it's got 200 milligrams or 400 milligrams in there, using clinical research on how much is needed in the body to rebuild the gut lining. And so it's, as I could go through, I can take the 8 books that I've written, and they're all appropriate for today.
True.
Every single one of them over a period of 25 years. So, the awareness is there. And what I'm trying to do today is still my journey is still on teaching people gut health, but in a way that's it's not just going to take this pill. You've got to change a lot of things about your life your stress levels and all the things that we hear over and over and over from all these people on podcasts, all these people on all of these social media. But it's got to be put together in a program where people can do it. That was the one thing, I can remember doing a lecture in, I think it was probably 1994. And I'm standing up in a health food store in front of a people, and I'm trying to teach them to cleanse their body. And they looked at me like a deer in the headlights, like, what is she talking about? They thought you had to fast. They thought all these crazy things. And so my point with that is I had to come back and put together systems so they could understand it. That was my first foray into teaching people. And today it's just I just keep simplifying, on rebuilding the gut lining, on putting in the good bacteria, on cleansing. Cleansing is a lifestyle. That's what I'm saying. You don't just do a whole body cleanse for 2 or 3 days and all these chemicals and things that are in the fat cells of your body, your brain, or wherever they're located, your liver. I'm seeing 14-year-olds with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease today. It's unbelievable. And so our health is going down. And so what we need clear communication and information for people to take a program and work it consistently. If you cleanse your body, you add in fiber. Then you put in the probiotics. And the way that you work it as a process, I guess is what I'm saying.
And to your point, many years ago, when you and I would talk and we would do a show, and then I would recommend your products, and I would tell people, I say, look, if you are not willing to put in the time, the 30, 60, 90 days that it's going to take to make a difference, then don't do it.
Right.
Because you did not get in this mess overnight. None of us did. It took a long time to get here. And I said, if you're not willing to treat yourself that well, that amount of respect, and realize that changes are not just for the 60 to 90 days, but that's when the changes begin. And that's when you have to change your diet and increase your activity and change your mindset. I said, if you're not willing to do it for the long haul, don't do it.
Because the point about that is it takes 90 days for the red blood cell to turn over. You know what I mean? So to make new red blood cells, and that's what creates health, is your red blood cell feeding the cells and tissues and organs of your body. So when we hear all these people today, I see them on Instagram going, we want to treat the cell. We want to go back to cellular health. That's very true. You do want to go back to red blood cell and heal that part of it and get the nutrients in there that we need to feed our body. However, the way that happens is getting your gut health in balance, and you have to make cleansing a part of it as a lifestyle. You do it periodically. You don't just do it once a year. It's part of your program. And so that's what I'm revamping and teaching today, is how to stay on these programs. I came up with the term, the probiotics are the multivitamin for the gut, because when I started, people, of course, we didn't even know the name probiotic when I started. We called everything acidophilus, and we didn't know that word until the early 2000s. And then when the National Institutes of Health funded the microbiome project in about 2004 was when the science took off in it. However, taking a probiotic is an everyday thing. We have to do it every day. Now that we have more problems with toxins in the environment and the processed foods that we're eating, it's even more important. And being able to differentiate. And the other piece of this is, if you went on Amazon or you went on and you saw the plethora of probiotic products that are being sold on there, most of them are not very potent, okay? And I say that very solidly, because you can test them and see what you got. And so most people don't know even how to purchase them and what these terms on a bottle mean. One of the things I teach too today is how to read a label. Like, how do you read a label and know what's in your probiotic? Know what's being guaranteed by a company you're purchasing it from. Knowing what's in, in let's say a cleanse program or a fiber, what you're getting in that, because people don't know that. Or your omega-3 oils. What are you purchasing when you purchase a bottle of fish oil that says 1,000 milligrams on the front of omega-3, and it's a fish oil? It says it on the bottle, and on the back it says, oh, well, that's only 300 milligrams of omega-3. You see what I mean? Because they bought it at mass market for $20. That's not going to give you the omega-3 that you need to rebuild what you need in your body. So, part of it is awareness and
Yeah.
teaching, and I'm back at that again, teaching people, what we have that are good quality products that we make at Vital Planet, because we are a digestive care company. I don't get into the other parts of supplements. I just stay focused in gut health, which I always have done. But the average people today, I'm seeing people everywhere sicker and sicker. And one of the big ones it has been acid blocking medication that they started taking 20 years ago,
Yep.
that they continue to take today because they don't understand stomach acid, the way the body works with acid. So they end up with reflux. They stop the acid production. That's another process that has to be repaired in the body so that the body can digest the foods that we're currently eating. So it's a quandary, and it's a quandary how to get it across to somebody in 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the problem is with these acid proton pump inhibitor medications that suppress your acid is, I understand people are suffering.
Right.
But rather than them asking the right questions, digestive enzymes, probiotics, greens, all the good stuff they should be doing, they decide to now self-medicate because things like omeprazole and stuff is now over the counter. I remember
Right.
when they were like $600 a month, and then the
Right.
patent ran out. Now it's over the counter. You get it for
Right.
$15. So they're
Right.
self-medicating, and they're instantly taking it. They're like, "You're wrong, Jeff. All my symptoms went away." And I'm like, no, you put a blanket over a campfire. It's going to burn right through it eventually. And then they're
Right.
on it for weeks and months and years. One of my friends has been on Prilosec for like 15 years. So she went to this
Right.
brand new doctor, and he was like, "How long have you been on this?" And she goes, "Long time." And he goes, "No, get off it." So he
Right.
took her off of this. Her bone mass is terrible. She hasn't been absorbing her calcium, no acid in her stomach. So within a week, she was a disaster, right back to where she was 15 years ago. So she called me up, and I'm like, probiotics. I said, pre and probiotics. You got to get good quality probiotics. You got to eat a Mediterranean diet. You've got to drink water, no more soda, no more food served through the window of your car. I said,
Right.
you've got to change it up. So she's been changing it, and she's noticing a difference. And I'm just like, you could have done this 15 years ago.
Right. And you could have, and the problem of it is once you stop a proton pump inhibitor, it pours acid out in your
Mhm.
system. I have something called the acid blocking recovery plan. Okay.
Nice.
And I teach people how to wean on the blocker, right? And then again, you take glutamine in at the same time, because that's going to use the cells of the gut will use glutamine to make new cells. We got to make new cells. That's the
Yep.
key in our
Yep.
gut lining. So they use the glutamine and the aloe. I have a formula called Gut Renew, an aloe formula with the L-glutamine, the marshmallow in it, DGL. And so they start with that and with the probiotic at the same time, while they're weaning down off the acid blockers. And I have really good conclusions with it, because they understand that when they stop the proton pump inhibitor, then the body's naturally is going to pour acid out, and they're going to feel worse than they did. So
Yep.
we got to do that also in a process. And that's one of the things I teach in some of the books I've written about the acid blocking recovery plan. Because you're right, the number one things I have is an instance of osteoporosis is higher, pneumonia is higher, C. difficile infection is higher. So all of these things, mineral absorption, like you just said, is cut down when we don't have acid, and we don't have B12 absorption when the acid is cut in the body, because we have to have intrinsic B12. So the point is, to think about that. Think about that. A lower instance of osteoporosis, a lower rate of pneumonia, a lower rate of C. diff, a lower rate of all of these other mineral absorption and B12. What that does to supply that to your body for nutrition is really critical. And so those few little things, right, that understanding that, getting off of those, and then going back, and as a maintenance, you look at, do I have enough acid or do I have too much? Probably in 80% of the cases, they don't have enough. That is a confusing thing to work out. But what you do is you start the recovery first, then you start adding in your digestive enzyme, which helps you with the breakdown of your foods. Remember, you're eating protein, starches, and fats to get nutrients out of those foods to fuel your body for energy. And so when we don't digest our foods, that's where the beginning of the end starts. So you got to digest your foods first, and then you can have good nutrients in your body. How do you do that? You keep your gut healthy. And I will tell you, the people out there walking around, even today, with the understanding, and we know about leaky gut today, we know about reflux and GERD today, we know about inflammatory bowel disease today, we know all these things, but we have to go back to square one. We have to stop self-medicating with all these things, whether it's ibuprofen or Tylenol or whatever it is. You've got to stop that process and start putting the good things back in that support digestion. How do you support digestion? A digestive enzyme. They're plant-based. They're great. They help you digest protein, starches, and fats. The glutamine and the gut renew, that helps bring down that inflammation so that you're not having those reactions when you stop taking the medications. So there's a lot to it, but it can be simplified. And that's what I teach today. Start with square one. What are you taking that's OTC or over the counter that's stopping or starting the process or creating a bigger process of inflammation in your body? And as you well know, and with the diet, of course, it's critical. But, it's like still, I used to go in the grocery stores and say, okay, you eat what's on the perimeter, right? You don't go in this middle section. And today I see people in there doing it. And it's funny because I'm like, there's more stuff in the middle now than there has ever been, right? True. And so there's more of those processed foods. But I think in some ways it's hard for people to conceptualize making their own food. For some reason, I am just rigid with that, myself. I don't eat the processed foods at all, very rarely, because I have problems with gluten. I had autoimmune as a child. So it's something, and I want people to understand too, if you have autoimmune, it's managed. You manage autoimmune. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It never goes away. You know what I mean? But you get where your body's not reactionary. So the autoimmune becomes managed. And I know the triggers for me with my autoimmune, it might be mold, right? It might be something like that. It might be that, I had Lyme disease at one time. So all of these things I've had that create more reaction in your autoimmune in your body. So these things have to be managed. And I think today we want to teach people, go to the gut. It's not just about taking a probiotic. No. It's more than that. It's making sure you've got enough fiber in your diet. I have an acronym called HOPE: high fiber, omega-3 oils, probiotics, and digestive enzymes. That's the 4 things that as we have gut problems that need to be put back in supplementally to be able to bring your health back in balance. And those 4 things are what at Vital Planet, we teach people to do these 4 things along with the word cleansing periodically throughout the year. Because I'll tell you, the fungus that people still have, the candida in their gut, is rampant. And they don't realize that's why they crave sugar, because the yeast is craving sugar, sitting in their digestive tract craving sugar. They think it's them. It's them inside of them, right? It's not something that's in their brain.
Well, so many people today have never even heard the word candida. Because it was such a huge topic for so long. And I was telling somebody the other day, I said, have you even heard anybody talking about candida in a while? He's like, I haven't. And I said, it hasn't gone anywhere. I mean, it's worse today than it was before. And the food companies, the processed food companies, have learned how to make terrible food taste really, really good to the palates of the people that are out there. So people they crave the processed foods, and you could say you don't. And emotions are running high. Mental health is not good. And if you're somebody that's dealing with something emotional, you're not reaching for a salad or a side of Brussels sprouts. You're reaching for pizza, deep fried mozzarella, and a bowl of ice cream. And we reach for it because it's our comfort zone. And I teach all the time, comfort zones are familiar. Yeah. We know them. I mean, our rear end fits in the dent of our couch. We know what a comfort zone is. They're never good for you. Right.
And I'm telling you, I'm going to write a book on emotional sobriety because this is a good one, right? I'm going to take the gut and I'm going to relate the emotions to it.
Oh,
right? And
nice.
how the
Yes.
gut relates to our emotional body, because that's not been talked about much either. And you hit on
No.
that just then, because we look at, you look at your liver, that's called your anger organ, right? And you
Hmm.
look at other organs in Chinese medicine and they are wrapped around an emotion. But people don't realize that your gut is really tied to your emotional body. And what you just said was brilliant. It was brilliant in saying our emotions and the mental health today in our world, and who wouldn't be mentally disturbed with what's going on? You know what I mean? Walking
Yes.
every day and looking around and going, oh my gosh, is this our real world today? However, you can get emotional sobriety. And as you work with your gut and you become aware that you want emotional sobriety, you can bring that into balance. And I am one day going to write about this, because I think it's a very important part and piece of this, Jeffrey, that we have not done before. And as you add in the probiotics and you add in these things and you work on that emotional body, whatever the trauma is, every single person I have ever worked with, whether that has a gut issue, which is most people,
Yep.
have had some emotional trauma that has not been dealt with. And so that piece of it needs to be brought into view, into the awareness of people, so they know that those triggers before they're already in the trigger. You see what I mean? Into the
I do.
emotional trigger.
No, I think it's brilliant. I think it would be wonderful, because we are living in a world today, no matter how good your world is, how good your job is, your accolades, your relationship, your jingle in your pocket, your bank account, that's fine. I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people in that position who are dealing with mental, emotional craziness every single day, and their guts are tied in a knot. And they think the
Yeah,
only thing they can do is either deal with it or take prescription medications. And I mean, I
right.
am barking and preaching and yelling on the top of my lungs. And a lot of them are starting to listen because they're tired of suffering and they're tired of not making any traction, because nobody is
Right.
addressing the real issue.
No.
Somebody said the other day, we have great health care in this country. I said, no, we have sick care. We cover
Right.
everything up. We're dealing with symptoms. And you know how people are. If a symptom goes away, I must be healed.
Right. I must be okay. Yeah. And they're
That's
not.
not the way it is. No, it's
No.
not the way it
And
is.
definitely, I think in the world of pharmaceuticals and in your mood and all the things, I don't go in that direction, and I really hope people will get off of that direction with pharmaceuticals, because I do think there's a way, especially in the balancing of your gut, that you become
Mhm.
more aware of your emotions and your
Yep.
triggers and how to work with those, because the diet is a huge piece of that,
Yes.
a huge piece of that. And if we can get that more balanced in an individual, and a lot of that comes into, you go outside, you're up, you balance your cortisol, if that's even possible anymore. You're up in the morning when the sun rises, your feet hit the ground and you get some energy, some connection with the earth, back to basics. You walk outside. If you don't exercise, you walk, you do something where you get outside. All of these pieces put
Yep.
together for the mind body and the food and the nutrition. And that's the world that I hope we start entering with people much more than we have been.
What have you done with your new line of probiotics that make it easy for people to look at the label and understand? Because I think
Well,
there's confusion, and I'm sure you've made it so it's understand. You always have. Your labels are beautiful. They always have been very kind of, for people that are naive in the area, they can pick it up and they can go, "Oh, I get that."
yeah. Well, what I do is, and I have, health food stores all over the country. And what I do is I put every single thing a consumer needs to know on our box, right? So for example, I'm going to show it to you. So for
Please.
example, I tell you actually I'm going to grab it.
Good.
So I
Lovely.
tell you, Jeffrey, I grabbed this one right here real quick. So in this one, for example, this is our potency in this particular product, which is 60 billion. That's potency. Just to give you an idea, I had the first 50 billion potency product in 2004. Okay, and
I
that was
remember
the
that.
first company to come out with high potency, and that's a long story. We should do a show on that. That's really interesting how that happened. So then you see here 60 strains. What does that mean? Well, when the National Institutes of Health began to do all this research with the microbiologists all over the country, we found out, and they started doing genotyping for the bacteria. We knew that the benefit, the health benefit of the probiotic was in the strain. Now, potency is important, but we found the strains. So when the microbiologists first started to look at Americans, and they went, wow, we should have hundreds of strains in us, and a lot of the strains that we need for good health are gone. So they went over to the hunter-gatherers in Africa and South America and tested their stool. And so, I've done stool testing for years, and I started seeing diversity panels on the stool test. Stanford went over and tested the Hadza's and found out all these strains that they had, we didn't have over here. They were gone. So what they started doing is developing strain banks. So what we do at Vital Planet is we go all over. We have to go to Italy and places like that to get get 60 strains to put back into our body. So if you look at probiotics and you look at the health benefits, you want a high strain diversity. This is diversity. Okay, if you look over here, I put the Lactobacillus is the genus, Acidophilus is a species, and then you've got all these strain numbers. That is transparency in a label. So you don't buy a product that just says Lactobacillus acidophilus or Bifidobacteria bifidum. That's improper labeling because you don't know what is in that product.
Agreed.
The other thing I do is I put it in a delayed acid-resistant capsule. So it bypasses the acid of the stomach and gets into the small intestine where it does its service, where we need the benefit. I also put in 7 organic prebiotics. Now, prebiotics are what the probiotics eat, okay, to multiply. So we add that right in our capsule. I also put in the potency to expiration of product. You know how we do that? We have to overfill the capsule.
Yep.
We don't just put at time of manufacture. So we guarantee our potency. Now, this is one of our phytoflora line. And what I call this line is our maintenance, our daily formulas. We've got a women's, we've got a men's. This is a general one. Actually, my grandchildren take this one. And this is a good one. It's 60 billion cultures and 60 strains. Having said that, now we have something called intense care. And I'll show you this one.
I'd love it.
We have 4 of the intense cares. This one happens to be. So what happened next is I started we started seeing the strains, okay, that could be clinically studied, that had been clinically studied for certain conditions. So we have gas and bloating, I have brain and mood, I have colon and constipation, and I have vaginal and UTI for women. And what that is these are condition focused. Okay, these are more for general, just overall good health. But if you've got these conditions, I have the parabiotics and the prebiotics and the probiotics in these formulas that are called condition specific. And we have
Nice.
4 of those. So that's the difference. We have a maintenance probiotic, but you will not see, you cannot go anywhere and buy a strain diversity like we have. And so if you look at, you see the research, they'll come in and go, oh, well, I need L. reuteri, or I need this one or that one. That's because the microbiologists have clinically studied strains now for certain conditions. Now we're coming up with more of them in the future that are going to be focused on gut conditions, but we also have ones just for general maintenance and good health. But that's my difference. My difference is delayed release capsules, acid resistant. We overfill the capsules. We have high potency, and I have 100 billion 100 strain immune formula that I developed right around COVID. And so we've got some really good formulas, but you're not going to find a company that has strain diversity like Vital Planet has, because that's what I've done in 2015. And you well know, Jeffrey, I've been at this a very long time.
I do.
And so when we started when I saw that research coming out that the strains have disappeared, and I saw it in my stool testing and my lab results, strain diversity, and this is what the patient looks like, then this is the new science. This is the new way. But getting 60 strains or 100 strains is difficult.
Of course it is.
You have to do a lot of sourcing to bring that into that. So Vital Planet is always going to be on the cutting edge of probiotics. We're always going to be a couple of dollars more expensive because of what we have to do to give you a quality product. And that's why I say, sometimes I have people, go on Amazon and we sell on Amazon too, but we don't discount on Amazon because I'm really strengthening the natural products in the brick and mortar stores because I want to see these people survive. Because when I see that the health food store is the destination of last resort for many people who are sick and suffering. Yeah. I mean, how many times I walked into a health food store in 1988, somewhere around that time, and said, I'm sick, I need help, and I don't know what to do. So do a lot of people still. So my goal with the rest of my time in this field is I'm going to support these stores. I'm going to educate the employees of these stores so that when people walk into these stores, they've got quality products. Because I had a guy in our office here just order something off Amazon, and it's a total bootleg product. Totally bootlegged. So I know what we have at Vital Planet. I know we have potency. I know we have strain diversity. I know we put the organic prebiotics. I know that we handle every single way to make sure you're getting a potent quality product. And that's what we do here.
I used to always tell people when I was talking with them in the stores, I said, look, you have to trust your probiotics just like you trust your gut.
Right.
And you have to trust your probiotics to work with that gut so that trust is built in the body on an ongoing basis.
Right.
And it's just, it's brilliant. It's so needed. It's so necessary. We're such a mess. And we have all of this technology and all of this. I mean, people know what to do. I mean, basically they know what they should be doing and they're not doing hardly any of it. And, because I have a lot of friends in my age bracket and I don't know, it's like they've just given up. They're not doing anything anymore. Now they're all getting sick. They all decide to retire early. I can't even imagine. And they're falling apart at the seams. And they're just one doctor after another doctor, 5 doctors a week. And I'm like, no. I said, you've got to take care of you. If you don't work on this in here, none of the rest of it works.
Right, so, exactly. And I don't, the one thing I think of, I'm older too, is I don't want to end up, all this longevity stuff and all these people want to live longer. And that's great. I think it's great. I don't want to live longer on medication. Yeah. I don't want to live longer not working for me. And I don't work, Jeffrey, I was a maniac worker and I loved what I did. That's why, PBS show after PBS show, but I loved it and I helped people and it was my passion. It still is my passion. However, I can't work at that rate anymore, but I'm always going to be giving back and helping people. I don't want to retire. I tried it, a few years back. I had a lot of tragedy in my life. I lost my son, which was horrific. And I had some downtime after that. And I had a time period there when I thought, you know what, maybe I just won't go back to work. Well, it was very depressing for me. And now that I've come back into Vital Planet and we're helping people again, I'm able to teach again. We're able to get out in these stores again and give people information. I'm so grateful for it. And like you said, I don't want to sit on the couch and take prescription medication and have aches and pains all in my body and and live to be 100, right? I mean, really? I don't want to do that.
I don't want to be band-aided together. I don't want that either. So if people are looking for your products, we are available at fine health food stores everywhere.
At fine health food stores everywhere. You can go on to vitalplanet.com and you can order online. You can go to Amazon. But again, we are Amazon in our world, Vital Planet, because I'm not a discount product. I'm not that product on Amazon that I'm competing with a guy for $2 cheaper. I'm not doing that. I have a quality product. And we stand by it. So we have been in this business over 30 years, a very long time. All these other people, they're good. I'm not saying there are not good products out there. There's probably good products out there. There's no product out there with strain diversity like Vital Planet has. So go to vitalplanet.com and look at our website.
So first of all, thank you. Well, it's just an honor to have you back in my world again. Leave everybody with a thought of the day, a Brenda thought of the day.
Well, I'm going to tell you something that's very apropos for me because I've been through 2 hurricanes that we were talking about. And one of the things that I want to say to people be prepared. Always be prepared and think through it. And I'm saying this specifically for your health, folks. Be prepared. And by that, I mean, take your health seriously and prepare yourself for aging. Look, we're all aging. From the moment we come out of that chute, we are aging. So be prepared with your food, with your supplements, with your things that you need to do in life. Because if you do that, if you think through it and you're not just reactionary to everything that goes on, think through it. Have some awareness and be conscious of what we're putting in our body. So be prepared with awareness, with consciousness on what we do. Our body is the vehicle that we use on this planet to survive. Treat it like it's an angel. You know what I mean? Treat it with respect and treat it with what it needs to carry you and walk you through this life. That's what I would say.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here today. If you guys you're tuning in right now and you're enjoying this, I love it. Please pass this on. These are words of wisdom. You know, when I tell you I'm bringing you the best minds in the industry, I'm bringing you the best minds in the industry who not only live it, but they love it. And it's coming from their heart. And in this instance, from your gut. So it's all good information. Remember, go to my webpage, drjeffreyburke.com, tap on the Honest Health logo, and it'll take you to Spotify. You can listen to all the shows on the audio. Tap on the YouTube icon logo, and you'll go and be able to watch the interview. So I hope that you will definitely do that. Bring your friends. Hey, bring your enemies. Bring everybody. Everybody needs to get healthy. So I hope you guys will do that. Brenda, thank you so much. I hope you'll come back and see me again.
Oh, I will. Definitely.
Awesome. Everybody have an awesome day. And remember, take a couple minutes every day and think about what you can do for you that will make your life better, more fulfilled, and definitely healthier. Have a wonderful day. God bless.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.